The candle sputtered, dripping wax onto a table cluttered with sketches, bones, and brass instruments. Leonardo worked in silence, each brushstroke deliberate, almost reverent. Outside, Florence slept beneath a fog that muffled every bell. He paused, staring into the half-finished face on the canvas. A woman whose smile held a secret he dared not speak. In the dim reflection of her eyes, he saw not beauty, but code. Circles within circles, hidden patterns the church would burn him for. Somewhere beyond those walls, the Brotherhood watched, guarding the truth they had sworn to protect for centuries. Leonardo dipped his brush again, not in color, but in defiance. The whisper of the bristles filled the room, a sound that history would one day mistake for art. What secret did his paintings try to protect, and who still guards it today? By morning, Leonardo's studio was flooded with gold light. To visitors it appeared ordinary, a master's chamber filled with art. But behind the walls lay drawings the world would never see. Sketches of forbidden symbols, celestial alignments, and coded maps connecting art to prophecy. The guilds of Florence called him eccentric, yet some whispered he was a messenger of an ancient brotherhood. His knowledge was too vast, his precision too deliberate. Every line, every shadow hid an intention. And within the smile of a woman, he buried a warning that few would live to understand. That same day, a messenger arrived from Milan with sealed orders from Ludovico Sforza. The Duke's court demanded Leonardo's service once more, not for beauty, but for secrecy. Hidden beneath royal commissions were coded designs, architecture that mimicked ancient patterns, portraits that mirrored celestial maps. Leonardo understood the language of form, and the Duke knew it. Every task was a test of loyalty, every sketch a potential confession. At dusk, Leonardo visited the church of Santa Maria delle Grazie. He stood before the blank wall that would one day bear the Last Supper. Yet his gaze was not of devotion. It was calculation. The wall would hold more than paint. It would conceal geometry, proportion, and silence. Some say he prayed. Others claim he was speaking to those unseen. The echoes of that night would carry through centuries. Long after midnight, Leonardo wrote in his mirror script journal. The ink flowed backward across the page, concealing words even from those who might steal them. His quill scratched quietly as the storm outside grew violent. Somewhere within those pages lay the blueprint of a belief, a secret that defied power and endured through art. The Brotherhood would ensure its survival, long after the master's hand turned still. The meeting took place in the cellar beneath a monastery on the outskirts of Milan. The air smelled of wax and damp stone. 5 men stood around a single table marked with symbols older than Rome. Leonardo's sketches were spread before them, circles that hid triangles, portraits that mirrored constellations. These were not patrons or students. They were keepers. Each man swore silence before speaking of a prophecy tied to light, measure, and divine proportion. Leonardo listened, his heart pounding as they spoke of a society that preserved forbidden wisdom through art, science, and symbol. What he once called inspiration, they named inheritance. And now that inheritance demanded obedience. They called themselves custodes lucis, the keepers of light. For centuries, their purpose was to preserve the harmony between divine knowledge and forbidden reason. But in Leonardo, they saw a bridge, a man whose genius could unite the sacred and the heretical. They gave him texts said to predate Christ, scrolls written in mirrored script, much like his own. Within those lines hid instructions to encode their creed in form and art. Leonardo understood at once that these men did not worship, they remembered. Their temple was geometry, their altar, truth disguised as beauty. Outside the monastery, danger grew. The Inquisition had begun questioning scholars whose ideas wandered too close to forbidden thought. Rumors reached Milan of men burned for geometry, mistaken as witchcraft. Leonardo began to fear that the very lines he drew could condemn him. Yet he continued, paintings sacred scenes filled with symmetry too perfect to ignore. Each fresco, each sketch became a puzzle, a scripture written in form. The Brotherhood had chosen him as their instrument, but even they could not foresee how his art would endure beyond their reach. In his workshop, Leonardo painted the Last Supper. To the friars, it was a masterpiece of devotion. But beneath the holy calm lay rebellion. The apostles' hands formed unseen patterns, the table's geometry mirrored celestial order, and the figure beside Christ seemed neither wholly male nor female, a whisper of balance forbidden by faith. Each brushstroke was a cipher, each face a vessel for code. When he finished, Leonardo stood before his work, not in pride but in fear. He had painted both revelation and heresy, and the world would not see the difference. When the mural was unveiled, Milan's clergy stood in awe. But among the crowd, Leonardo recognized faces from the Brotherhood. Their eyes met briefly, an unspoken oath renewed. Yet far beyond the church walls, another set of eyes watched, agents of the Inquisition whispering his name. That night, the Brotherhood disbanded into shadows, scattering relics and coded manuscripts across Europe. Leonardo sealed his journals and burned what he could not hide. But even as the flames consumed his pages, he smiled faintly. The secret was no longer his to keep. It was already alive within his art. Years had passed since the flames swallowed Leonardo's papers. Milan had changed, and so had he. The whispers of heresy followed him wherever he went. In public, he was the gentle master, beloved by nobles and scholars. In secret, he became a fugitive of thought. The Brotherhood was scattered, their meetings silenced by fear. Yet fragments of their message endured, carved into sketches, encrypted within his notebooks, disguised in the anatomy of angels and saints. He no longer painted for patrons. He painted for memory. The faithless burned his kind, but his truth had learned to hide in plain sight. As his body aged, Leonardo's faith turned to geometry. Lines that never lied, proportions that reflected eternity. He moved to France under the protection of King Francis I, carrying with him only a handful of notebooks. The French court adored him, unaware that the old man in their gardens held the key to centuries of forbidden knowledge. He spoke softly now, his genius wrapped in riddles. His paintings watched silently as he taught apprentices to see not beauty but structure. What he could no longer say aloud, he buried within design, trusting that someday another mind would understand. When Leonardo died, his followers wept, but none more than Beatrice. She alone knew that among his belongings was a final codex, sealed and hidden within the frame of an unfinished painting. While others catalogued his genius, she gathered what was meant to remain unseen. She fled under moonlight, her hands trembling as she carried the painting through the forests of Amboise. Behind her, royal guards searched, unaware that the true treasure was not gold or canvas, but words. Words that whispered of the Order's return. Beatrice reached Florence in silence. The Brotherhood had nearly vanished, its members hunted or exiled. She sought refuge with Matteo di Rossi, once a watcher, now a believer. Together they opened the sealed frame. Inside, written in mirrored Latin, was a prophecy that spoke of a return, a rebirth of the Order, when art and science would once again unite against false faith. They realized Leonardo had not merely painted truth. He had planned its survival. Every secret society that followed, every cryptic order whispered in centuries to come, began with this moment. The years that followed buried their names, but not their work. The codex passed through hands of scholars, monks, and secret patrons who believed in the promise of balance between faith and knowledge, light and form. Over time, the Brotherhood changed its face, hiding beneath new banners and philosophies. Yet Da Vinci's cipher endured, waiting for an age ready to listen. His art, once dismissed as beauty alone, was in truth a map, leading those who sought meaning beyond dogma. The secret had survived the fire, and somewhere in the shadows of history, it began again. A century after Leonardo's death, Italy thrived under the brilliance of new minds, painters, philosophers, architects. Yet behind the gilded beauty of the high Renaissance, whispers of the old brotherhood resurfaced. In hidden corners of Florence, apprentices traded sketches bearing circles and mirrored text. To the church, these were harmless imitations. To the initiated, they were proof that the lineage had survived. The code lived on not through blood, but through brush and compass. Every cathedral rose as testimony. Every statue held a fraction of Leonardo's geometry. The world praised beauty, never knowing it was built upon heresy. Giovanni and Sophia were more than artists. They were seekers. Their teacher, a quiet monk named Brother Matteo, claimed to have found fragments of a lost codex within the walls of a crumbling monastery. It spoke of the line unbroken, a phrase that haunted Giovanni's dreams. As they compared their findings to Da Vinci's surviving notebooks, patterns emerged. Precise measurements hidden in compositions, sacred ratios embedded in faces. It was not coincidence. It was inheritance. And though they painted for patrons, every stroke became an act of quiet rebellion, an oath renewed through art. The church's gaze soon fell upon their work. Whispers spread that Giovanni's paintings possessed unnatural precision, that his depictions of saints resembled celestial constellations. Under pressure, Matteo vanished, leaving only a final message. The circle must return to France. Giovanni understood. The codex fragments had to reach the descendants of those who once sheltered Da Vinci himself. With Sophia's help, he disguised the texts within a shipment of fresco panels bound for the royal court. The journey would test not only their faith, but the very secret they had vowed to protect. Their path led them through mountain passes and plague-stricken villages. At a monastery near Lyon, they found refuge among monks who claimed to know the old creed. There, in a hidden chamber beneath the chapel, Giovanni unsealed one of the panels. Beneath the plaster lay symbols unmistakably Da Vincian: golden spirals, star alignments, ratios of divine symmetry. Sophia wept at the sight. The prophecy was true. The Brotherhood had never died. It had evolved, adapting to survive in faith's shadow. What they carried was not a relic, it was a map, waiting for the next awakening. When the panel finally reached France, its symbols found new admirers: scientists, philosophers, Masons who saw in it the union of faith and logic. The Brotherhood's fire passed into new hands, changing names but not purpose. Giovanni and Sophia faded from records, their works absorbed by history, their message carried forward in silence. Yet the pattern endured, appearing in cathedrals, manuscripts, and blueprints across Europe. The Renaissance had birthed beauty, but within it, something older had quietly awakened. And beneath every masterpiece, the hidden line continued, unbroken, unseen, eternal. By the mid-1600s, Europe had changed again. Wars of faith left cities in ruin, yet art and science bloomed in their ashes. Beneath the foundations of new cathedrals, men gathered not to worship, but to remember. They called themselves architects, builders, masons. To outsiders, they spoke of stone and proportion. Among themselves, they spoke of light, the eternal line that connected Da Vinci to those who came after. What had begun as paint on canvas now guided the design of nations. Geometry had become gospel, and truth, once whispered, now hid behind the beauty of form. Alaric's order met under the guise of an architects' guild, though no church would have blessed their creed. They believed God spoke in measure. That harmony itself was divine. Their lodges were hidden within libraries, taverns, and cathedrals, where diagrams replaced scripture and compasses replaced relics. Each member carried the emblem of the circle and star, an echo of Da Vinci's line, unbroken. Through whispered gatherings, The Brotherhood's philosophy spread to the thinkers of France and the scientists of England. They were no longer fugitives of faith, but architects of a new world. Word the silent architects reached the courts of Europe. Some kings sought their knowledge, others feared their power. In Paris, a young scholar named Lucien de Clermont uncovered a set of engravings that matched Leonardo's lost geometry. He understood at once what they meant: the perfect balance of mind, body, and spirit, encoded through form. He began to teach it quietly, blending it into philosophy. Within decades, his students became mathematicians, astronomers, and revolutionaries. The Brotherhood's truth was no longer confined to secret rooms. It was infiltrating thought itself. The Brotherhood had learned to adapt. Their truths wore new names: reason, enlightenment, progress. But the symbols remained unchanged. Lucien and his followers met in salons and candlelit chambers, speaking of balance between human will and divine design. Among them were future architects, inventors, and poets who shaped Europe's awakening. Yet every generation faced the same choice: to reveal the secret or preserve it. Some believed light should guide the world. Others feared that truth, once freed, would destroy it. The circle began to fracture. By century's end, the lodges had spread from Paris to Vienna, from Rome to Edinburgh. Their gatherings shaped the early architecture of freedom and the foundations of secret fraternities to come. Though the Brotherhood's name changed with time, its heart remained Da Vinci's: faith in the sacred order of creation, hidden within reason. Beneath symbols of masonry and enlightenment, the same geometry lived on, quietly building a bridge between art and eternity. The painter's whisper had become an empire of silence, and though the world forgot his name, it still followed his line. By the late 18th century, Europe burned with new ideas. Liberty, equality, and reason echoed through the streets of Paris, yet within the chaos, old symbols resurfaced. Among revolutionaries were those who traced their lineage not to kings or priests, but to Da Vinci's circle. They saw the coming storm not as destruction but renewal, a chance to align humanity with the geometry of truth. Hidden among the architects of revolt, the Brotherhood turned its compass toward destiny. The balance Leonardo once painted now threatened to shake thrones. As the revolution raged, Etienne hid the Brotherhood's relics within the catacombs. He believed the time had come for the compass of light, a small bronze device, said to contain Da Vinci's final ratio. A symbol meant to restore balance between reason and soul. Yet within the mob, some sought only power. The Brotherhood fractured. What once united them began to divide. While the world shouted for freedom, they fought quietly over its meaning. Every secret society born thereafter would bear the mark of that argument. The compass turned inward. When Napoleon rose, the Brotherhood saw a chance to shape the world anew. Some joined his engineers, embedding their code in blueprints and fortresses. Others fled, fearing empire would twist the light into dominance. In secret, Camille became the keeper of the compass, disguising it as a scientific tool. She traveled with scholars who mapped stars, yet her true chart was of faith and form. The line that began with Leonardo now circled the globe, etched into architecture, hidden in equations, sleeping beneath flags. In Cairo, Camille found echoes of Leonardo's geometry carved into stone older than history itself. The Brotherhood's creed, it seemed, had existed long before its name. As scholars measured pyramids, she recorded ratios identical to those in the Codex. She understood then. The compass was not a relic, but a reminder that knowledge must circle back to humility. Yet even as she guarded it, men conspired to steal it, seeing power where she saw balance. The Brotherhood's eternal struggle, light against vanity, began anew beneath the desert stars. By the dawn of the 19th century, Camille vanished into the sands, her journals lost to time. Yet fragments resurfaced decades later, sketches of the compass, letters written in mirrored script, a single phrase, The line sleeps but never ends. Across Europe, secret circles studied her work, shaping the foundations of modern thought, architecture, and code. From lodges to laboratories, Da Vinci's silent thread stretched forward, guiding dreamers who saw beyond walls and nations. The painter's secret society had not died. It had evolved into the age of reason, disguised as progress. By the dawn of the 20th century, Europe stood at the edge of invention and war. Machines roared, skies filled with flight, and art shattered its old forms. Yet beneath the surface of progress, the Brotherhood still breathed. Architects hid sacred ratios within steel towers. Painters layered geometry beneath abstraction. In quiet gatherings, descendants of the old line met to discuss not religion or rule, but equilibrium, the harmony between human creation and the natural order. As empires rose and fell, their compass turned silently toward a new age of light and secrecy. The Brotherhood's remnants gathered during the Great War, believing the chaos signaled a turning of the ages. Eloise served as a code analyst, concealing the Brotherhood's knowledge within military ciphers. Messages of geometry and proportion traveled through radio waves disguised as coordinates. While nations fought for land, she fought for memory. In shattered cities, she saw Da Vinci's lesson reborn. The balance of destruction and design, each needing the other to create renewal. The secret no longer belonged to painters or masons. It lived inside the language of machines. After the war, science and art merged in unexpected ways. The Brotherhood's designs resurfaced through architecture and physics, shaping theories of balance and relativity. Eloise, now a curator at the Louvre, uncovered a series of lost notebooks attributed to Leonardo's students, each page echoing the same spirals that had guided her family for generations. She realized the Brotherhood's mission was never to control knowledge, but to protect it from misuse. The compass of light was not an object anymore. It was an idea. The belief that understanding must serve harmony, not power. As decades passed, whispers of the Brotherhood faded into myth. Yet those who studied art's hidden symmetries still traced the same line. From Florence to Paris, from brushstroke to blueprint. In the digital dawn, new minds began rediscovering the code through mathematics and pattern recognition, unaware they were walking the same path. The old oath endured not through blood, but curiosity. In every equation, painting, and melody that sought harmony, Da Vinci's silent design returned, asking once more if humanity was ready to balance faith and reason. Now, in the 21st century, the Brotherhood exists only in fragments, symbols carved into stone, algorithms shaped by symmetry, paintings that seem to breathe with hidden proportion. Yet its message endures. That truth cannot be owned, only tended. The line that began in Leonardo's hand has crossed centuries, faiths, and empires, guiding those who seek harmony between creation and conscience. In a world of endless light, perhaps the greatest secret is not what Da Vinci hid, but what he revealed. That the divine is not beyond us, but perfectly measured within.